Don't let these tears fool you. It's all dog around this mug. I'm good.
Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones. And yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. Shouts out to everybody in the chat right now. Shouts out to everybody listening, no matter where you are, wherever you may be. On this edition, we're going to be talking about the New Orleans Saints and talking about, can the Saints make it 3 in a row? As of right now, the Saints are on a 2-game winning streak, got victories over the Carolina Panthers and most recently the New York Football Giants. And now we turn our heads and our eyes towards Thursday. The New Orleans Saints have a big-time matchup versus the Los Angeles Rams. Both teams are 7-7. Both teams are 500. And with a few playoff spots left, there is no margin for error. And right now, you look at the New Orleans Saints, it seems like they're playing some of their best football of the season down the stretch. You know, going into December, you want to make sure that you're playing your best football. You want to make sure that you're out there, you're putting your best foot forward, and you got to make sure that, you know, you're leaving no stone left unturned. There was some good news coming out of New Orleans when it comes to wide receiver Chris Olave. Of course, Chris Olave missed this game Sunday versus the New York Giants, and he was dealing with an ankle injury, but he did return to practice, and it was a light practice, more of a walkthrough for the New Orleans Saints on Tuesday. And, you know, it's good to know that Chris Olave is headed towards the right direction. You know, the Saints definitely need Chris Olave down the stretch. You know, he didn't play in the game versus the Giants. The wide receiver group that they had out there did a good job making contested catches, showing the acrobatics. Lynn Bowden made a really good catch, as well as A.T. Perry. So the young guys stepping up. But it's always good to have another guy out there, especially what a lot of Saints fans and Saints coaches probably believe is their number one receiver in Chris Olave. So if Chris Olave can play, that will be a great advantage for the New Orleans Saints. When you look at the Los Angeles Rams, earlier in the season, there was a lot of struggle, a lot of up and down. Sean McVay, of course, got these guys back on track with his offensive mind. You know, he has some really good, talented players that they have on offense. And one thing that I admire about the Los Angeles Rams offense is you got a bunch of guys out there that nobody really heard of. And what Sean McVay is doing for those guys is making those guys credible. You think about rookie Puka Nacua. I mean, a rookie out of BYU who set the single season receiving yards record for wide receivers. I mean, he may not be a household name to you, but if he continues to play the way that he does, you might have another situation how they have out there with Cooper Kupp. You know, Cooper Kupp came in with very little fanfare, and now he's one of the best wide receivers in football. And these guys can get open, you know, and then you also have Matthew Stafford, a guy who has been there, done that. He's been in the league for over a decade. He's a Super Bowl champion. I mean, we all remember some of the games watching Matthew Stafford for the Lions as he took on the Saints. And, you know, he also played in the game the last time the Saints played against the Rams. He didn't finish the game. He left the game due to an injury. And, you know, the Rams are playing for a lot as well. I mean, as you know, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that the 49ers are going to win the NFC West. So that leaves the 7th spot for the Rams. And as of right now, the playoff positioning have the Rams in 7th place. And if they want to maintain that spot, they have to knock off the Saints. This game to me means more than any of the last 2 games that the Saints played. Now, someone can make an argument and say, well, you know, we wouldn't even be at this point if the Saints didn't win these last 2 games, which is true. But when you are fighting for your playoff life and you know that you control your own destiny, you can tell a team resolve. You can tell the way that they are coached. You can tell the sense of urgency and how it rings in the ears of the players in order for them to go out and play. Like, to me, that's a testament to, is this the right coaching staff? Is this the right group of individuals, to lead this team going forward? Now, me personally, I don't think that it is. I understand that Dennis Allen wanted to talk a big game after the game versus the Giants when Derek Carr played his best game in the Saints uniform, and the defense looked lights out. And for the first time, and probably since maybe that New England game, they played a complete game. But if you play 14 games and you only have 2 out of the 14 to say, you know what, this is why y'all need to keep me around, I don't know about all that. But I do know this. I'm not mad at the confidence. I'm honestly not even mad at the fact that players feel kind of slighted by the fan base and the media. I mean, whatever floats your boat, like anything that you need to motivate yourself in order for you to win these games down the stretch that matters, hey, have at it, right? If you don't feel like the fans were in your corner the whole time, you feel like the media has something against you, by all means, take that as fuel so you can go out there and put your best foot forward and put forth the best effort for you to make a playoff run. The Saints, to me, cannot afford to lose any more games, especially in the NFC, which all they have left are NFC games. They dropped too many earlier. If they probably would have beat the Minnesota Vikings or beat the Packers, then we wouldn't even be in this position. But the fact is, the New Orleans Saints have not been consistent throughout the season. So here we are, fighting for your playoff lives and hoping that the chips fall where they may. In order for the Saints to win this football game, to me, they're going to have to be creative. I don't know who was calling the plays last game. I guarantee you, I don't know. If you was to put the Saints coaching staff on a polygraph test and say that was all Pete Carmichael, I would say that they're not telling the truth. I'm pretty sure that polygraph test came back inconclusive. The fact is, that was not the Saints offense that we've seen all season long. I don't know if Ryan Curry got his hands on it. I don't know if John Gruden was somewhere in the facility. Maybe he was doing something virtual, or maybe he was at the facility. But if the New Orleans Saints can maintain that type of offensive efficiency that we saw in the game versus the Giants, and you combine that with the defense they've been playing, it's going to be hard for any team to beat the New Orleans Saints. And honestly, this game versus the Rams, it kind of works in the Saints' favor. The Saints, to me, are kind of structured as a team that needs the quarterback to be a stationary target. And Matthew Stafford, he has good footwork. He has really good mechanics as a quarterback. But, of course, we know that Matthew Stafford isn't looking to run out the pocket. He's not trying to be Lamar Jackson. He's not trying to be Jalen Hurts. So the fact that he is more of a stationary target, it would probably help the New Orleans Saints cause. But the offense, the defensive line of the New Orleans Saints got to be able to replicate some of the things that we saw versus the Giants. Now, I expect for the Rams offensive line to play better because the Giants offensive line has been terrible throughout the season. Now, I don't know if any of you know, but there was a game a couple weeks back. They played against the Seattle Seahawks, and the offensive line gave up 11 sacks to the Seattle Seahawks. So to say, okay, man, maybe the defensive line has turned a corner, I got to see that in a game where I see that offensive line is a little bit more competent before I just say that these guys turned the corner. But there is some good news. Peyton Turner, the former first-round pick for the New Orleans Saints, returned to practice. So he's off of IR. And maybe down the stretch, he can provide some level of a spark, and maybe we can see something out of the first-round pick. You also have Isaiah Foskey, who is listed as questionable for the game. He's can't come back. The rookie out of Notre Dame, who in spots, he made some plays. Hopefully, he can probably be a part of the rotation. And if we can get Brian Brzee and Tano Passanio to continue to play the way they played over the last couple of games, I think they should be fine along with Carl Granderson. But this is going to be a tough game regardless. We know what Sean McVay possessed. We know that he's one of the best offensive minds in all of football. He can take those players that are unheralded and turn them into legit contenders. We see this all the time. We've seen it throughout the years with Sean Payton as the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. So he does definitely have that gift, and these guys are going to be motivated. So the Saints are going to have to be ready. That offensive line, who did a really good job last week versus the Giants in the last game, holding up for Derek Carr. He was only sacked one time. There was a little bit of a miscommunication. A guy comes on a blitz, knocks him down. But for the most part, they've been playing really well. So if the Saints can replicate some of that offensive line performances we've seen, they should be okay. But we know that Cesar Ruiz, if you're looking at the offensive line, he struggled. He struggled throughout throughout the season, and now he goes up against arguably the best defensive lineman of our generation in Aaron Donald. So it's going to be tough. So the Saints are going to have to figure out how to neutralize Aaron Donald, how to get the running game going offensively to set up the play action for Derek Carr. I think that Derek Carr was more efficient because of the running of Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara almost averaging 5 yards a clip. And if you accompany Jamal Williams with that, the Saints had a really formidable 1-2 punch. I also expect for Taysom Hill to get a little bit more of a workload. I think the Saints kind of took it easy on him, knowing that he was coming back off an ankle and a hand injury. They didn't want to just thrust him into the lineup. So I think that's probably why you've seen a little bit more of Jamal Williams. But I think what the New Orleans Saints see when it comes to Jamal Williams is if you continue to give him more opportunities, the stronger he'll get down the stretch. And the Saints got to utilize that. Now, I'm not saying that they have to get away from Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill has a really good skill set. Of course, we know he is the Swiss Army knife, and teams are going to have to stay up a little bit longer to find out how the Saints are going to attack them with Taysom Hill. But I also feel like you have to, incorporate Jamal Williams. You have to incorporate Alvin Kamara. And if Kendre Miller is able to play, a guy who's been on IR dealing with an ankle and a knee injury throughout the season, if he can come on, that would be great. I mean, we've seen him in little small spots. He's caught passes. He's really done good with the screen game with the New Orleans Saints have implemented, having him a part of it. So if you can have these guys running the football, it can set up the play action, and I think Derek Carr will be able to put the ball into the hands of the playmakers. Now, to me, it's going to be a close game. I don't think that this is going to be one of those games where one team just pulls away and it's just hard for another team to come back unless the Saints just completely wet the bed. And the whole time, the time of as far as them being on the West Coast is a big concern. It's always an advantage for the home team because they don't have to travel on a short week. But the Saints know what's in front of them. The coaching staff knows what's in front of them. And if they are not prepared, I just think that's more of an indictment on the coaching staff, understanding what is on the line, the implications and what they carry. And if you're not prepared for a game like this versus the Rams, I don't know too much I can say other than maybe they do need to go in another direction. Look, I'm not sold on Dennis Allen. Look, I don't care how many games they won. I'm not going to say, oh, they beat the Giants. Oh, they beat Carolina. They ain't beat nobody. You only can play the teams that are on your schedule. You only can play the teams that are placed in front of you. So I'm not going to poo-poo them on that, but I do feel like Saints fans want to see a little bit more consistency before they just say, hey, maybe they have right the ship. Me personally, I don't think they have right in the ship. I think they've reached a part of their schedule where, you're going up against teams that are terrible, but you're not as terrible as those teams. But let me go ahead and read some of your comments, and we'll go ahead and go from there. I'll start with Julian. Julian says, got to win these last 3 games because if not, then we need help from other teams. Look, I don't think that you can afford to lose any games. There's a chance where the Saints can still get the 7th seed if, they don't win, if they don't win out, but they have to win 2 out of the next 3 games in order to even be in that. But the best way for you to know for a fact that you can make the playoffs is win the whole freaking thing, right? Win all your games that matter. Try to knock off, the Los Angeles Rams, beat your division rivals in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons and see where you are at the end of the season. I mean, all of these games are pretty much playoff games because none of these teams can afford to lose a football game down the stretch. If the Rams lose, then there's a chance that they won't make the postseason. If the Saints lose, there's a chance they won't make the postseason. If Tampa lose, there's a chance. Atlanta already shot themselves in the foot on Sunday, so there's a little bit of an uphill battle going on in Atlanta. So you can't afford to lose any of these games. If you do, then you might as well just pretty much say good night, Irene. Especially when you look at Seattle getting that big victory against the Eagles, especially looking at the fact that you have the Green Bay Packers who already beat you, Minnesota who has already beat you. And I understand that Minnesota is dealing with some quarterback issues, Nick Mullen, Jared Hall, Josh Dobbs. They don't know who's going to start from week to week. You also have the Atlanta Falcons deciding to go with Taylor Heineke, benching Desmond Ridder for the second time this season. And you also have to, give credit where credit is due. Baker Mayfield is looking like the best quarterback in the NFC South. So you put all that together, there are some chances that the New Orleans Saints could make the postseason, but some of those early drop games that they had against the Packers and against the Vikings are now starting to rear their ugly head. And now you're basically controlling your own destiny, but you have to win out in order for you to make the postseason. So they got to get it done. The better keep that same energy the rest of the year. It seems like he started to get some backbone, but clapping back at the media over one good game for Carr is foolish. Yeah, I think so, Tyrell. I think that me personally, I like the fire. I like the dog mentality. I like the fact that DA is showing a little bit of a different side of himself. I think that the whole passive aggressive approach is just not working. Like, you can be a really good coach, but I just feel like you can't be passive. Like, you don't have to be yelling at guys. Like, we've seen coaches in the past who, didn't really yell at guys. Coaches like Lovie Smith, Tony Dungy, Andy Reid, they're not the rah-rah guys, but when they speak, people listen, and they demand respect. There's a type of aura that they carry themselves with that guys know that they can't get out of line or they're going to be out. I just think when it comes to Dennis Allen, I just think that, all that passive aggressive behavior, not really holding guys accountable when they get out of line, people can, kind of look at you as almost like a beta male. So the fact is, you're going out there, you're showing a little bit more aggression. That's cool, but you got to back it up as well. I used an example on X, also formerly known as Twitter. I was just saying, DA, he sounded like Floyd Mayweather, but everybody knows he's kind of like Adrian Broner. And for some people that may not follow boxing, of course, we know Floyd Mayweather, one of the best defensive fighters, one of the best fighters of all time. He goes into a press conference with a level of confidence, and everybody, want to see this guy lose, and he still goes out and he pulls out a victory, going up against Oscar De La Hoya, beating Manny Pacquiao. You know what I'm saying? Like, talking a good game and also backing it up. And then you also have Adrian Broner, who kind of follows the same blueprint, but when it's time for a primetime matchup, he always seems to fall short. And that's what DA has seemed to be looking like, throughout his career. Like, you talking a good game, you're talking like you're confident, but when it's time to get into the arena, with the capacity crowd is, the place is sold out, the tickets have been sold, you brought everybody into the building doing all that tough talk, and you can't live up to the hype. So it's good to talk. I ain't got no problem with that, but you also have to back it up. And this is one of those games, to me, can really decide if the Saints are going in the right direction, because you're going up against a Super Bowl winning coach, a coach that really knows what he's doing, a coach that understands situational football, can make the necessary adjustments. And DA, has struggled against coaches like this. So we'll see if he has what it takes in order for him to, get the best out of these players down the stretch. We'll see if the message kind of, registers. Me personally, I don't think that it is. I just think that they kind of reached a part of their schedule where you're not as good as you think you are, but these teams that you're playing against are a little bit worse. Now, once again, I'm not going to poo-poo and say, oh, what I'm saying, like, it don't matter that you played these teams and beat them. No, I'm not saying that, but All I'm saying is we got to put this thing into context as well. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want a grandstand, you got to be able to back it up against credible competition here. We better come out with the same sense of urgency of offense for sure. Start fast. Can't go down 2 possessions early. Yeah, you can't do that. And you got to make sure that you're playing good sound defense. Get pressure on Matthew Stafford. Got to make sure that you get him off his spot. The Saints defense, once again, they're tailor made for this type of quarterback. I feel like the defense of the New Orleans Saints is kind of passe. I mean, it didn't really show, against Tommy DeVito. Tommy DeVito is one of those scrambling quarterbacks. He can move around the pocket a little bit. But I also think that his inexperience kind of played a huge role in why the Saints were able to neutralize him. You're going up against Matthew Stafford, a guy who has seen it all and done it all, but he is also a stationary target, which I feel like the Saints, if they know that a quarterback is going to stay in a pocket, if they know that a quarterback more than likely is not going to try to move outside the pocket, I think that it kind of plays into their hands. I think they struggle versus some of those athletic quarterbacks because they don't account for his legs. You don't have to really worry too much about Matthew Stafford scrambling. Yeah, he'll probably run a little bit, maybe slide, get 2 or 3 yards if necessary for a first down. But of course, he's not looking to run, and I think that this kind of plays into the hands of the New Orleans Saints, kind of like some of those Tampa Bay teams, where, you can kind of, rush the passer and you got to worry about him trying to leave his spot. So this is a game where the Saints can actually, neutralize Matthew Stafford. But Matthew Stafford is no slouch. He can get that ball out. He can make all the throws. And we all know how talented he is. Saints have some promising young receivers, which is a huge turnaround from when we just had Mike T and everyone else. LOL. We just need a new offensive coordinator to develop them and make them a dangerous team. Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of talented young guys on the team, and as they catch those passes, the more confident they're going to get. Like that. It's almost like one of those situations where you're new to your job or you're new to a situation, and you're probably a little nervous going into it, but then you start to get acclimated to it, and some of those nerves start to go away. I think with A.T. Perry catching that touchdown versus the Minnesota Vikings a few weeks ago, coming up with that big 40-plus yard catch to pretty much seal the game against Carolina, I think that those type of things kind of motivates some of these younger guys. And then you have Lynn Bowden, who, was pretty good before when he was playing with the Raiders. He had a little bit of character issues, which is the reason why he's no longer with the team. But, he's always had like some talent that he possessed. And I just think that the Saints kind of scratched the surface of that. And then you also have Rashid Shaheed, who I don't feel like is 100%, but he's out there and he's trying to play. He understands that, the absence of Olave, that means that he has to step up and emerge to try to make plays. So I just think that, Shaheed, he's not all the way there, but we know what he can do. And if Juwan Johnson can provide something, to the offense, the way that he did last week, catching some of those passes where the ball was thrown his way, catching that touchdown. And now the Saints finally did the right thing by adding Jimmy Graham. I mean, you got some talent. And not to mention, I didn't even talk about Chris Olave or Michael Thomas possibly coming back down the stretch. So if the Saints can, get it together and have all hands on deck, who knows? I mean, if this defense continues to play the way that it has over the last couple of weeks, I mean, they can make it competitive with anybody. I don't care who they're playing in the playoffs. I mean, I'm not going to say they're going to beat anybody in the playoffs, but the defense is good enough to keep these guys in the game. It's all up to what Derek Carr can actually do. And we still got to see it. I mean, the jury is still out. I mean, you kind of quiet the critics this week, but the name of the game is consistency. Like, you can't just go out there and beat on your chest because of one game. Like, you got to be consistent about it. And I think that the more games that you put up where you're putting up positive yards, when you're going out there putting your best foot forward, the team is looking good, offense is looking efficient, I think that Saints fans and media alike will be quiet. But I still think that there's still some unanswered questions when it comes to Derek Carr and Dennis Allen as the head coach. I mean, you can say whatever you want. I mean, you can grandstand in front of the media when things going your way, but we still need to see it against competent competition when we know like teams that you're more than likely to see in the postseason. I mean, you got the Rams. This is one of those teams that we know more than likely they'll get to the postseason. So if you can put forth an effort and put forth some of your best games against competition like this, I think people will start to kind of, you know, I still think they'll be skeptical, but they will appreciate you moving in the right direction. Cool Sports, thank you very much for the $4.99. Says the 2 wins didn't impress me. If they win this game and go ahead and make the playoffs, then maybe I might start to change my mind. Well, look, it's a wait and see approach, and I think that any Saints player or coach that feels like is not a wait and see approach, I just think that that's wishful thinking. I mean, this coaching staff and this team has underperformed over the last 2 seasons, and quite frankly, people are tired of it. When people know what success looks like, when they know what competent football looks like, and the fact that you actually have to turn to other football games where you're not emotionally invested in a team to see what good, consistent coaching and what consistent play looks like, it's pretty sad, and nobody wants to feel like that. Like watching some of these teams that are, wrecking shop like the 49ers, Buffalo has been looking real good as of late, even though they're fighting for their playoff lives. But when you see these teams out here performing at a high level, I mean, offense is clicking on all cylinders. Perform like some of these other teams are doing the tape, and you see some of the talent that those teams possess. This does not add up. Like if you put some better coaching or you put some better offensive innovation around this team, like they will be the team. So look, this is a wait and see approach. This is one of those, one of those things where people want to see these results. Like it's one thing about talking a good game, I'm saying? That's cool. I'm saying? Talking a good game, but you got to be able to back it up. And you got to like DA is realizing that his job is on the line. Well, I mean, he should have knew that his job was on the line regardless. Like you should have knew that. Side of the Superdome for home games anymore because they don't want you. You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't even take all that. Like you should be prepared regardless. Like that's what I don't understand. Like I keep telling people, and this is pretty much just proves what I've been saying for I don't know how long. The New Orleans Saints, to me, the reason why I feel like this is not sustainable, actionary team. They're reactionary. Like they only respond when they feel like they got a chip on their shoulder, or people say that they're not good enough, or people say, "Oh man, football." Like, why does it have to take fans? Why does it have to take the media in order for them to criticize you? Yeah, why they got to do all that? I really just don't understand why you have to go through all that in order for you to, generate any levels of success. Let me see. Juvie says, TJ, you're wooded area, so it's probably the reason why, it's, I mean, not going to have a long show, and I apologize for this. Can everybody still? Visiting my in-laws, and it's like a wooded area, so the reception is kind of going in and out. But all in all, I'll make sure that I try to get back to you all. towards the, I try to get back and try to do a show or probably do something that's pre-recorded where you all can kind of hear me. So we're going to go ahead and end this. I apologize for the, going in and out, but I appreciate you all's time. And until next time, all I got to say is, who that?